This space is for people who are learning how to listen inward and trust themselves again. If that resonates, subscribe and stay a while. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 4th episode of Unpacked Sessions. My name is Shayla, and I'm so excited to be here with you all today. Today's episode is in light of Valentine's Day. For all the lovers and lover girls out there like myself, I wanted to talk about a book that is just so important to me, that has really helped me in a lot of ways. It's helped me by showing me a new way to think about love and a new way to move forward on my journey. And that book is going to be All About Love, another one by Bell Hooks. She is amazing. But this book, I read it for the first time 2 years ago, and I don't know, it was going viral on TikTok, and I was like, you know what? I'm at this point in my life where dating is just not making sense, and I don't know if it's because there's something wrong with me or if there's something wrong with them, but it wasn't making sense, and the way that I was going about things wasn't making sense for me anymore. It wasn't healthy. I will say that this book is not a guide on how to live your life or how to love or how to date, but it is a book that talks about love in a way that I had never had it explained to me, and I deeply appreciated that because it made sense in my brain, and it's allowed me to focus on things that I can control versus the things that I can't. I learned from my last relationship that love is not control, and this book really talks about what love is, and it's more so a practice and an action instead of a feeling. She defines it multiple times in the book as: to truly love, we must learn to mix various ingredients: care, affection, recognition, respect, commitment, and trust, as well as honest and open communication. So mixing all those things together is how you truly practice love. And I think a lot of times, especially in today's world that is overly hyper fixated on aesthetics and vibes and all these things, we can kind of get focused on more so how something, I guess, makes us feel, or how it's portraying to make us feel, versus what it actually looks like and how it's being practiced and executed, right? So she talks about a lot of different things. She talks about how men theorize love because they receive it and know what it feels like more often than women do, because women practice love and we yearn constantly wanting that feeling to be reciprocated, and how it is portrayed that women have the capacity to love more than men, but in actuality, men also have that same capacity. They're just socialized to believe that they don't. And just a bunch of other different things that she highlights in this book. So I want to say, when I do refer to myself as a lover girl, I'm not just talking about romance or dealing with men, because I am straight, but I love love in all its forms. I love romantic love. I love platonic love. I love familial love. I just think love is beautiful. I love the love that a person can have for themselves, which is also a very big piece of being able to love another person. You cannot require something from another person that you cannot provide to yourself. And I'm a firm believer in that you have to love yourself the way that you want to be loved. And when you do love yourself in a way that feels good and feels right to you, you will not accept quote unquote bare minimum. You will not accept anything less than the love that you're giving to yourself. I also think in an earlier episode, I talked a little bit about how some things may work for others that may not work for you, and how that's okay. It's okay if what you require in love looks different than your friends or your siblings or your parents, even. That is okay, because love, again, is a practice. It takes intention, it takes the care, the commitment, the understanding. And it starts with yourself. If you're taking care of yourself, if you're committed to yourself, if you're disciplined with yourself, if you're discerning with yourself, if you're understanding of yourself, it becomes much easier to not only require that from somebody else, but to also then provide that or reciprocate that. And I too am a firm believer that you do have to do what works best for you in all things, even in a romantic relationship. As long as you and that person have an understanding, then it really should not matter what anybody else thinks. But again, we are a generation, an era, a society of people that care too much about what other people think, myself included. I'm not taking myself out of this, but I'm just saying, when you are truly practicing love for, what it is, none of that other shit matters. So I recommend this book for a lot of my homegirls, for people who are on their journey, single people just trying to understand love a little bit better. But you don't even have to be single to enjoy this book, because it just gives you a new perspective on love and what it looks like. And I can deeply appreciate that. So I mentioned earlier that Bell Hooks defines love as care, commitment, trust, responsibility, respect, and knowledge. Things that, you have to intentionally practice. She also just highlights that love is not just chemistry or desire. So I mentioned earlier how we are such an era that loves aesthetics, love things that just look good. Just because you are sexually attracted to a person and the physical piece is there does not mean that you have the capacity or the ability to love that person. Love is much more, obviously, deeper and intentional, but she talks about too how men can be aligned a lot more with the physical parts of a relationship, which leads them to believe, like, oh, this person matches me physically, so this is love. And while that is important, don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna be that girl that's sitting up here telling y'all that sex is not important, because to me it is. But it's not everything. It's up there. However, there are other pieces within a loving relationship and loving dynamic that matter. Can you wake up next to this person? Do you like the way this person thinks? Do you understand this person at their core and know that you can consider them, and know that, even when they make a mistake, that their intention is never to hurt you? And when you are having this open and honest communication with them, you can see and understand that at their root, at their core, this person made a mistake and they love me, and they would not intentionally hurt me, right? And these themes, again, carry over into more than just our romantic relationships. These are also things that matter in friendships as well, and matter in familial relationships. I think a lot of times when we talk about love, we can tend to put friendships and familial relationships on the back burner. But the truth is, your familial relationships are your first experience with love. And if they are terrible experiences or harmful experiences, it can be very detrimental on your journey and your next experiences with love overall. She has a chapter in the book that talks about redemptive love and how friendships are the redemption that we a lot of times get after experiencing harmful familial dynamics or even harmful romantic dynamics, because a lot of times friendships are also a community. You get to choose your friends a lot of times. Just, you get to choose your partner, but again, you get to choose your friends, and they get to show up for you in different ways than your family does, and different ways than a romantic partner does, and it can redeem how you feel about love overall. I always say that my homegirls are the reason why I still believe in love, because they are literally the epitome of love, and they express it and live it so well. I know so many girls that have had their hearts broken by men, by their family, by society, and they still wake up every day and choose to love, other people and make the active choice to date again or put themselves out there again or try again over and over and over. They don't let it shut them off. And that's just, again, it's very deep for me, for one, but also it just acts as a reminder that love exists and that I know it exists, because to be hurt, to experience heartbreak at the hands of another person, to experience even things like grief, and to still wake up and not let that harden you, not let that take away your whimsy or the lover within you, to push through another day, that is true love. Another thing that she talks about is that love requires accountability. And I know that is a buzzword right now, but it's the truth. You have to not only be able to hold somebody else accountable, but you got to hold yourself accountable. We all make mistakes. Nobody is perfect. But you cannot show up in a loving relationship and expect to just get away with different things that could be harmful within your relationship. So it's important that you're not only honest with that person that you're in relationship with, whether it's, again, romantic, friendship, familial, because accountability does not just stop or start in romantic relationships. Like, you have to, I hold my family accountable all the damn time. Like, I don't even play for real. So again, you have to be honest with, right? If you know that you've done something wrong, but you're trying to soothe your own ego or save face, that is not acting out of love. And yeah, if you want a deep connection and true love or loving space, it requires accountability. She talks about how love is incompatible with domination or abuse. And I don't know the exact year that this book was written, but she talks about capitalism and how we are living in such a capitalistic society, that people are choosing to consume so much over love, and it just doesn't coexist, right? And that's the reason why we are struggling so much with living in a loving, just society, because you can't exploit others and try to also breed a loving atmosphere. It just doesn't exist. Love is not control. When you love somebody, it's all encompassing. You love them just for existing, right? And unfortunately, in a capitalistic society, you are only rewarded for the work that you do and your labor. You are not rewarded for just existing, and it just doesn't work out that way. And the last point that I wanted to bring up is that she talks about how many of us were socialized to want love without knowing how to practice it. So again, love is a practice. It's not just a word. It's not just a feeling. It is all those things. It takes a lot of care and consideration to love somebody, especially at their core, to love something at its core, to love at your core, right? And I talked about it earlier, how the practice of love, it truly starts with yourself. It truly does. There's no way around it. If you don't love yourself, there's no way that you could love another person. So some questions that I do want to bring into the space are, and I'll probably include some of these within the description or on my Instagram, but did we grow up seeing love practiced or just talked about? How many of us confuse intensity with intimacy? I definitely confuse intensity with intimacy. I love an intense moment, and it's hard. Sorry, I thought one of my dogs were in here. It's hard because the buildup can feel so good. Like, oh, finally, I'm connecting with somebody. The passion's there, the effort's there, but that is not truly intimacy. And to get to that level of intimacy, it requires real depth and real connection and real understanding a person at their core. Another question is, what parts of love were modeled for us and what parts were missing? And then how often do we excuse harm in the name of love? So I think I briefly mentioned my last relationship earlier, or maybe I didn't, but my last relationship was very unhealthy. It was from 2022 to 2023. It only lasted 6 months, from August to January. But it was extremely toxic. It was abusive. We were both very shitty to each other. However, it just escalated to a point where I was no longer safe. And we both were no longer safe, but the dynamic put me at higher risk than him. And as I was, coping with the trauma of that relationship and, trying to process what I had experienced, it dawned on me that my family had harmed me in quite a lot of ways. And you make excuses for your family because they're your family. And like I said earlier, your family is usually your first introduction to love, right? So you don't know. And if I'm making excuses for, my family members who are harming me, of course I'm going to make excuses in friendships and romantic relationships, right? Well, I love them. And when you love somebody, you endure, or you just see the love, or you make excuses, and it's not okay. And I think if we started being honest and having those hard conversations within our family, from a young age, and opening up that communication within our family dynamics, then we would understand, like, hey, some of these things shouldn't be going on, and we need to be trying to prevent harm from happening to people so that, people don't grow up and end up in trauma cycles, essentially. But again, life is life. Life is messy. But so those are just some of the questions. I'm going to list some of them, like I said, in the description. Switching gears, I want to talk a little bit about, oh my God, my hair looks crazy right now. I want to talk about sisterhood and friendship as love, because I mentioned earlier that she talks about in the book how friendship and sisterhood a lot of times acts as redemptive love. So two of my favorite depictions of that would have to be Waiting to Excel and Insecure. I think Waiting to Excel is the perfect example of sisterhood as a form of emotional safety. We get to see the dynamics of a group of women who lean on each other during some of the most tough times at different points of their lives, and they find safety within that. It's Black women loving each other loudly. It's friendship as survival. It's women witnessing each other through grief and joy and redirection and reinvention of themselves. And I also like the fact that even within their differences within that film, the one thing that is holding them together, or at the root of it, is that they're all Black women. And yes, Black love. There is nothing there is nothing like being loved by a Black woman. It is quite literally one of the best feelings ever. And I say that obviously as a Black woman, but again, most of my friends are Black. My sister, my mother. There is nothing in this world that compares to the love of a Black woman. There's a lot of care and consideration and intention. I hate to be a shady boots, but I wish Black men understood that at a bigger level. It's not to take away from the fact that I do deeply believe that a lot of Black men do love Black women, are attracted to Black women, are with Black women, but to understand the sacredness of being loved by a Black woman, the ability to reciprocate that also means that you're sacred as well. And I'm like catching chills and how important that really is for us to break the chains and shackles that this country has constantly put on us, right? Black love is the revolution. It is liberation. It is the freedom, because the more that you love yourself, the more that you love your community, the less you get distracted by that outside bullshit. And I promise you, it's like a feeling that's indescribable for me to think about what a world would look like if Black people put love at the top of their list. But hey, Insecure. We love Insecure. Insecure is just one of those millennial. It's just a great show. Hey, we get to see a lot of messy, evolving friendships. We get to see repair, distance, reconnection, and love that grows as the women grow. I have said since I watched the season finale or the series finale when everybody else watched it, that the true love story of Insecure was in that monologue that Molly and Issa, that moment that they shared during Molly's wedding, that was the true love story. We got to see two Black women go through some of the craziest moments of their lives and still end up with Black love in the end, but also love for one another, right? Because there was a moment that Issa and Molly were very, very shaky, but they were able to prevail because they loved each other. That is the real love story. Your friends are going to be there for every single heartbreak that you have. These men will come and go, but your girls are going to be there and they're going to love you through even the worst moment. That was a true love story. So, revisiting or visiting those, I think it's important for us to look at who do we feel safest becoming ourselves around. And are we truly underestimating friendship as a form of love? In my opinion, we do. We don't talk about it enough. We don't talk about look for this love that we know exists, but we are so just hell bent on getting it instead of looking at the love that we already have and just really indulging in that. Some other moments within Black culture that I think really highlight romantic love are gonna be Love Jones, and then on the flip of that, The Photograph. I think these two movies are like the same movie in different fonts, but Love Jones is like one of my favorite Black love movies, and The Photograph is right next to it because they both just highlight tenderness and emotional availability and a slow build but very steamy, and maybe even the intensity that I mentioned earlier that again could be unhealthy but also serves its purpose, especially when we are talking about romance and when we are heating things up. There's a level of intensity that I appreciate when I'm seeing somebody romantically. I definitely think that I appreciate Love Jones' ability to depict desire without spectacle and vulnerability without making it like trauma porn. And really, we get to see the dynamics of a relationship that really develops quickly while there are so many other moving parts, while The Photograph serves as a much more slowness and curiosity, and these two artists who turn into lovers. So again, why I believe Black love exists, or Black love is radical. Black love existing in a world that profits off of Black pain is the most radical thing that we could possibly engage in. It shifts the narrative when we choose to love one another. Loving each other fully and intentionally is an act of resistance, because again, when you tune out what they tell us about ourselves and really lock in with what you know about yourself, okay, you can't really tell me shit. I know Black men like Black women, so this whole dynamic of, well, as soon as a Black man gets some blah blah blah, no, that is not always the case. And while there are situations where that is true, it is not always the case. And the predominant research shows opposite. Black love disrupts narratives of disposability and isolation. So again, when we choose to love one another, whether that be romantically, friendships, familial, it shows that we are capable of showing up for one another and that somebody wants me. Again, somebody wants me around. Somebody wants me here. I'm not just profitable off labor. I matter. My existence matters. And then love isn't just romance, it is how, again, we show up for each other. This session definitely, I love love, and I'm happy that I was able to come to this space. It was harder for me to talk about this today because I do tend to get emotional, but I am on the up and up because while I am talking about love and Valentine's Day and friendship and sisterhood specifically, I am going to go spend Valentine's Day with my sister who lives in Atlanta. It'll be our first time spending Valentine's Day together. We lived in different cities for most of while she was growing up and while I was growing up, but again, I just really wanted to come to the space and highlight this book and why I think it's so important and some key pieces that align so much with where we are right now as a community and just so many other pieces within our culture that already exist. Make sure you all check out my digital journal, Conversations with Yourself. It'll be linked in the description. And I hope that you all enjoyed this episode, and I really can't wait for the next one. I will see you all soon. Thank you so much.